I sat in my living room, scrolling through my phone, trying to kill time before Clara got home. She'd been away for nearly a week on some business trip that I couldn't care less about, but it was her thing and I respected that. Sort of. It was strange, though, how little I felt like seeing her return. I'd gotten used to the quiet, to the solitude. It wasn't like it was bad when she was around, but sometimes I wondered if I could do this on my own. The sound of a car pulling up outside snapped me out of my thoughts. I glanced at the clock. It was about time. I didn't get up from the couch, no need to rush. But then I heard the door open and her voice, light and happy, calling out, "I'm home." I hadn't expected her to sound this cheerful. I mean, I knew she was happy about the trip. She had been talking about this big presentation for weeks, the one that was going to change everything. But I didn't expect her to sound so carefree. She came into the living room, a huge grin on her face, her eyes sparkling with some kind of joy I hadn't seen in her in a while. "You're not going to believe it," she said, practically bouncing on her heels. "It went so well. The presentation, the clients, everything. I killed it." I put my phone down, not really sure what to say. I mean, yeah, I was happy for her, but something about her energy felt off. It was like she was glowing, but not in a way that made sense. I don't know, maybe it was just me. "That's great, Clara," I said, trying to sound genuine, but the words felt heavy on my tongue. Glad everything worked out. She didn't seem to notice, or maybe she just didn't care. She started talking a mile a minute, recounting everything from the trip, the flight, the meeting, even some silly detail about the hotel she stayed at. And the whole time she just radiated this energy, this happiness. I couldn't help but feel a little tug of jealousy, but I pushed it down. She deserved this, right? She worked hard for it. And yet, something still didn't sit right with me. I chuckled softly, trying to play it off. "Maybe I should send you on more business trips, huh? You seem a lot happier when you're gone." She laughed, tossing her bag onto the couch beside me, and flopped down next to me. "You think so? Maybe I should start traveling more often." Her laughter lingered, but there was something different about it. It wasn't the kind of laugh I was used to. It felt almost rehearsed, too perfect, too light. I looked at her, studying her face, trying to figure out what was going on. But she was already reaching for her phone again, scrolling through something, her attention divided. I didn't ask her about it. I didn't want to sound suspicious, paranoid, or worse, insecure. "Did you miss me?" she asked casually, glancing up at me. Her lips curled into a playful smile. I stared at her for a beat too long before replying, "Yeah, sure, but you don't seem like you missed me that much." She laughed again, more genuine this time, her hand brushing through her hair. "I did. Just a little busy, you know? I had a lot to do, but I'm happy to be home." I nodded, but the weight in my chest was growing heavier by the second. Something about her felt off. Something had changed, and I didn't know if it was her or if it was me. Maybe I was just overthinking it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't know her as well as I thought I did anymore. That night, after Clara had gone to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Her mood, her energy, it was all too perfect, too carefree. It didn't add up. We'd been together for years, and I'd never seen her so light, almost reckless with her joy. But it wasn't just the cheeriness. It was the way she avoided my eyes whenever I asked her about the trip. I tried to put it out of my mind, telling myself I was just tired, maybe a little too paranoid. But when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Clara was in our bedroom, unpacking her suitcase. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, listening to the faint rustling of clothes as she moved around. But then I heard it. A quiet murmur, barely a whisper, as if she were talking to herself. I leaned forward, straining to hear. "Shit," Clara muttered under her breath. The sound of a zipper being tugged open followed. My gut twisted. I couldn't tell what she was doing, but it didn't sound right. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stood up, moving quietly toward the bedroom. I didn't want to confront her. I didn't even know if there was anything to confront. But I needed to know. I peeked around the door frame, just enough to see her. She was kneeling by her suitcase, her hands trembling slightly as she rifled through her clothes. She seemed to be in a hurry, her movements sharp, frantic, as if she didn't want anyone to catch her. And then I saw it. Her hands slid under the pile of clothes, pulling something out. A black lingerie set. My breath caught in my throat. Clara froze, her back stiffening as if she could feel my eyes on her. She quickly shoved the lingerie back into the suitcase, but not fast enough. I saw the card. It was small, white, and had a little bit of writing on it. The handwriting was unfamiliar. "For when we're finally alone." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart raced and I couldn't stop staring at the suitcase, unable to look away from the little piece of paper that suddenly felt like a glaring beacon of betrayal. "Clara," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm that was building inside me. "What's this?" She turned, her face flushed with panic. Her eyes darted to the suitcase, then back to me, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. "It's nothing," she said quickly, standing up and trying to close the suitcase. But I was already moving, my feet moving faster than my brain could catch up. I grabbed the suitcase, lifting it up slightly before she could stop me. "Don't," she said, her voice trembling, more desperate than I'd ever heard it. "John, please. It's work stuff." I don't know why I even knew. I didn't let her finish. My hands were shaking, but I flipped the suitcase open and pulled the card from where she had hidden it. "Who is this from?" I asked, my voice suddenly tight. She swallowed, her gaze dropping to the floor. "It's nothing, okay? Just something I got for myself." I stared at her, disbelief clawing at my insides. "For yourself? Clara, don't lie to me. I know you." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she just stood there, arms crossed in front of her, like she was trying to make herself smaller, as if somehow that would make it better. I felt my chest tighten. The card, the lingerie, her behavior, it all pointed to something I couldn't ignore anymore. My heart pounded in my ears as I backed away, the suitcase slipping from my hands and falling to the floor with a dull thud. "I need to know the truth, Clara," I said quietly, but the words felt foreign on my tongue. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but something in me, something in her made me stop. She looked at me then, her eyes wide, her lips trembling as if she were holding back tears. But the longer she stayed silent, the more I felt the wall between us grow higher. She finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "John, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I was going to tell you, but Tell me what?" I interrupted, my voice harsh. "That you've been sleeping with someone else?" The words felt like they'd been dragged out of me, like they weren't even my own. But Clara didn't deny it. She just stared at me, her face pale, her lips trembling as the truth finally seemed to settle between us. I didn't know what to do. My world suddenly felt like it was falling apart. I wanted to scream, to leave, to just walk away from it all. But I couldn't. I was too frozen in this moment, too shocked by the reality of what I had just uncovered. She slowly reached for me, her hand trembling as it hovered just above my arm. "John, please," she said, voice breaking. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It meant nothing." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The air between us felt thick, suffocating. All I could do was stare at her, trying to piece together a version of this situation that made sense. But nothing made sense. Everything I thought I knew about us, about her, was just gone. And in that moment I realized this wasn't a mistake. This was something she had been hiding from me. And I had no idea how to fix it. The following morning I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned all night, the images of the lingerie and the note replaying in my mind. I told myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I had jumped to conclusions. But deep down I knew I couldn't ignore what I had seen. The lies were so obvious now. Clara was still in bed when I got up. She hadn't left for work yet, and I felt this strange reluctance to face her. But I had to. Something had changed between us, and I wasn't going to let it slide without answers. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, trying to gather my thoughts. But no matter how hard I tried to focus on the mundane things, my mind kept drifting back to that damn card, the black lingerie, the way Clara had acted. It didn't sit right. I stood up and walked over to the counter, opening the drawer where Clara kept her things. I didn't even know why I was doing it. Maybe it was the anger, or maybe it was the fear. Either way, I couldn't stop myself. I started with her phone. It was sitting on the counter next to her purse. I grabbed it, feeling the cool weight of it in my hand. She had left it unlocked the night before, probably thinking I wouldn't think to check. But I had to know. I had to understand what was going on. I opened her messages, scrolling through the texts. At first, there were the usual things: work, family, the occasional "I love you" from her mom. But then a message caught my eye. It was from a number I didn't recognize. A simple text, "Can't wait to see you again tonight. I'll make sure it's worth the wait." My stomach dropped. I scrolled back, and there it was again. Messages between Clara and this man, Ethan, the name attached to the number. My hands began to shake as I read through them, one after another. "I miss you. Can't stop thinking about you. I'll be free after 7. Can you meet me then? We need more time together. No one can know." I felt sick to my stomach. This wasn't just an innocent mistake. This was an affair. Clara had been hiding this from me for who knows how long. I slammed the phone down on the counter, my mind reeling. Couldn't breathe. I wanted to confront her now, but a part of me wanted to let it all settle, to figure out how I wanted to handle this. But how could I? I stood in the kitchen for what felt like an eternity, my hands gripping the edge of the counter, trying to process the pain, the anger, the disbelief. It was all too much. Finally, I took a deep breath and made up my mind. If Clara wasn't going to tell me the truth, then I would have to find it for myself. I grabbed my keys and left the house, heading straight for a private investigator I'd heard about from a colleague at work. I didn't want to do this, but I needed proof. I couldn't live in this state of confusion anymore. The investigator's office was tucked away in a corner of the city, a small, nondescript building. I felt like I was walking into a different world as I entered. He was a no-nonsense type, a guy with a steady gaze and a voice that made it clear he didn't deal with games. "I need you to look into someone," I said, my voice rough. "My wife. She's been acting strange. I think she's seeing someone else." The investigator nodded. "Tell me what you know." I explained everything, the trip, the messages, the black lingerie, the note. And as I spoke, I felt a heaviness in my chest that made it harder to get the words out. But I had to say it. I had to get it off my chest. When I finished, the investigator didn't say anything right away. He just took notes, his pen moving quickly across the paper. Finally, he looked up at me. "I can get started today. I'll need a few days, but I'll give you the details once I have something concrete." I nodded, still reeling from the weight of it all. I had never imagined I'd be sitting in a place like this, asking a stranger to help me uncover the truth about my wife. But there was no turning back now. As I left the office, my mind raced with all the possibilities. Would Clara deny it when confronted? Would she try to explain herself? Or would she admit to what I already knew? I didn't have the answers yet, but I would. And when I had them, I was going to confront her. There would be no more lies, no more pretending everything was fine. I had been living in a dream for too long. And now I was awake. The following morning, Clara was different. She tried to act normal, as if nothing had changed. She moved around the kitchen, making coffee, flipping through a stack of papers for work, her demeanor calm, almost too calm. I watched her from the doorway, my thoughts a tangled mess, but I forced myself to remain collected. I wasn't going to let this explode. Not yet. I had to be strategic. But it was hard. So damn hard. Because every time I looked at her, I couldn't stop picturing the messages, the note, the look on her face when I found her panicked and hiding things. I didn't want to confront her in an emotional outburst. I didn't want to let her see the way my world had been crushed by her lies. So instead, I kept quiet. I acted like everything was fine, as if I hadn't spent the last 24 hours spiraling through a storm of disbelief and anger. "Morning," I said, my voice steady, even though inside I was anything but. I sat down at the kitchen table, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. Clara gave me a soft smile. "Morning. How'd you sleep?" "Fine," I said. "I was thinking about maybe doing a little yard work today. The grass is getting out of control." "Sounds like a good idea," she replied, her voice light. She wasn't looking at me directly. She kept her focus on her coffee, her hand shaking ever so slightly as she lifted the cup to her lips. I watched her. My heart was beating so loud in my ears, but I kept it together. She was pretending like everything was okay. Pretending like I didn't know what I knew. And I hated it. I hated how she could just carry on like this. "Clara," I finally said, my voice quieter now, "there's something I need to ask you." She set her cup down with a soft clink and looked at me, her eyes wide, but there was an edge to them, a hint of fear. Sure, what is it? I saw the messages, I said, my tone even controlled. And I found the card, for when you're finally alone. Her face drained of color, and for a moment she didn't move. The silence hung thick in the air like everything was holding its breath, waiting for the truth to be said. She stammered, her hands moving nervously as she tried to gather her thoughts. John, I can explain. Explain? I asked, leaning forward slightly. What is there to explain, Clara? I know what's going on. I know about Ethan. I saw the messages. Her eyes darted away from me, her lips trembling. It's not what you think. Not what I think? I repeated, trying to keep my voice level, but the frustration was rising in me. Then what is it? Because what I think is that you've been seeing someone else behind my back. I've been paying attention, Clara. I know what I saw. Her face crumpled and she stepped back slightly, her breath catching in her throat. It was a mistake, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I never meant for it to go this far. A mistake, I said, shaking my head slowly. You didn't just accidentally sleep with him, Clara. You didn't accidentally text him every day while you were away. This wasn't a mistake. This was you hiding something from me, and for what? Because you felt something was missing. She blinked rapidly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a few messages. Nothing more. A few messages? I said, my voice rising now, no longer able to keep it down. You think that's just a few messages? Do you realize what you've done to me? This isn't just a mistake, Clara. This is betrayal. She was silent for a moment, the words hanging between us, but she didn't deny it. She didn't defend herself. Instead, she just stood there, her hands trembling, her body shaking slightly as she tried to hold herself together. I'm sorry, she finally whispered, so quietly that it barely reached my ears. I didn't want this. I didn't want to hurt you. But she stopped, unable to continue. Didn't want to hurt me? I asked, my voice sharp now, edged with the pain I was feeling. Clara, you've been lying to me. You've been sneaking around behind my back, and now you want to apologize? What do you expect from me? Do you expect me to just forgive you? She took a step toward me, her hands outstretched, but I took a step back, away from her touch. I couldn't let her get close. Not right now. I don't know what you want me to say, she said softly, her voice breaking. I was confused. I didn't know what I was doing. You just what? I interrupted, my frustration bubbling over. You just thought you could have an affair and I wouldn't find out? You just thought everything would stay perfect between us. I was lonely, she whispered almost too quietly for me to hear. I felt disconnected. You were always so distant lately, and Ethan, he was there. He made me feel wanted again. Her words hit me like a slap. Lonely? She had never said anything. She had never told me she was feeling disconnected. How was I supposed to know if she never opened up to me? Lonely? Is that really what this is about? I asked, my voice low, the pain lacing each word. You couldn't come to me? You couldn't tell me how you were feeling? I'm sorry, she said again, her voice so small now, like she was a shell of the person I had known. I never meant for any of this to happen. I don't know how we got here, but I want to fix it. I want to fix us. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, if I even wanted to. Clara, I said, the words slipping out in a whisper. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I even want to try. She shook her head, her tears finally falling. Please, don't say that. I love you, John. I do. I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hold her, to fix this, but a part of me was screaming that it was too late. She had already broken something between us that might never heal. And in that moment, I knew something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't sure I could ever go back to the way things were. It had been 3 days since the confrontation. Clara stayed home, quiet, almost apologetic, but it felt like a distant echo. She wasn't the woman I had known. She wasn't the woman I could trust anymore. The house felt empty, and not in the usual way when she was away. It felt suffocating, like a veil had descended between us, and every glance I gave her only deepened the distance. I didn't know where to go from here. My mind kept racing between confusion and anger, between wanting answers and wanting to get away from it all. But I knew I couldn't rest until I had more than just her word, more than just her apology. If I was going to make any decisions about what came next, I needed the full truth. I met with Jack, the private investigator, the following afternoon. He was a grizzled, no-nonsense type who'd seen more than his share of messy situations. His office had an air of quiet professionalism, with dark wood paneling, leather chairs, and a desk cluttered with files. He sat across from me now, his expression hard but empathetic as he handed me a folder. Got what you asked for, he said, his voice low like he was trying not to make this more uncomfortable than it already was. Took me a few days, but I tracked down the guy and got everything you need. You're gonna want to look at it all. I opened the folder slowly, feeling a pit form in my stomach as the first few photos slid out. The first one was of Clara sitting at a bar, laughing. The man beside her was unmistakable Ethan. He had his arm draped casually around her shoulders and the intimacy between them was clear. It wasn't just a friendly gesture. It was familiar. I scanned through the photos, each one more damning than the last. They were at a restaurant together, at a park, at what looked like a hotel lobby. The evidence was mounting, and with every photo, the realization hit me harder. I had wanted to believe Clara. I had wanted to trust her when she said it was just a mistake, but this wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal. I clenched my fists, feeling the blood rush to my face. This was happening. This was real. And I couldn't deny it anymore. Did you get anything else? I asked, my voice tight. Jack didn't hesitate. He flipped the page, revealing several screenshots of messages. The words jumped off the page, the same ones I had seen on Clara's phone. Can't wait to see you again tonight. I'll make sure it's worth the wait. We need more time together. No one can know. And there was more, explicit texts, playful messages, all signs of an affair that had gone on far longer than I wanted to admit. Is there anything else? I asked, the words barely leaving my throat. Jack nodded, his expression grim. I also got some surveillance footage. It's not much, but it's enough to confirm what you already know. He pulled out a small video file on a USB stick. This was shot last night. They met up at a hotel. You'll want to see this. I stared at the USB stick in my hand. I hadn't asked for footage. I didn't want to see them together, didn't want to witness their closeness in such a raw, painful way. But it was the final piece. I knew that. I didn't want to go home right after the meeting. I didn't want to walk back into that house where everything had changed. But I had to. I had to confront Clara with the truth. I couldn't avoid it anymore. Thanks, Jack, I said quietly, shoving the folder into my bag. I wasn't sure what else to say. What else was there to say when everything was already laid out in front of me? I paid him and left the office, the weight of the evidence pulling at my shoulders. I drove back to the house, my thoughts swirling, my mind a maze of questions. I had the proof now. There was no more denying it. Clara had been hiding this affair from me. But why? What did she want? When I arrived home, Clara was sitting on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, flipping through a book she had been reading for the past week. She looked up when I entered, her eyes a little too bright, her smile a little too forced. Hey, she said softly. I didn't hear you come in. Did you get everything you needed? I didn't respond right away. Instead, I walked over to the coffee table and placed the folder down in front of her. She froze, her eyes scanning the pile of papers, the photos, the messages. What's this? She asked, her voice shaking now. I crossed my arms, watching her closely. It's everything, Clara. The truth. I know what you've been doing. Her face blanched as she reached for the folder, her hands trembling. She didn't say anything as she flipped through the pages, her eyes widening with every new piece of evidence. Finally, she looked up at me, her voice barely a whisper. John, I can explain. I was going to tell you, but I was too scared. Scared? I repeated, my voice rising with the hurt I was trying to contain. Scared of what? That I might find out? That I might not forgive you? She tried to stand up, her hands shaking as she reached for me, but I backed away, not able to let her touch me. I never meant to hurt you, John. I love you. I didn't want this to happen. I swear I didn't. You love me. I asked, my voice bitter. You love me, but you've been sleeping with another man? You've been hiding this from me for who knows how long. She stopped, tears welling in her eyes. It was a mistake, a huge mistake. But I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I said quietly, my chest aching with the weight of the words. You hurt me in ways I don't know if I can come back from. The silence between us stretched for what felt like forever. She reached out again, but this time I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at her, my heart breaking as I realized how deep the betrayal ran. I can't keep doing this, Clara, I whispered. I don't know how to move forward with you after this. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. She looked at me, her face pleading, but there was nothing she could say now. The truth was laid bare, and there was no way to undo the damage. I wasn't sure what the next step would be, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the life I had imagined. Not anymore. The next few days felt like a strange blur. Clara stayed home, quiet, as if she were waiting for some miracle to fix everything. I went through the motions, work, errands, pretending that nothing was wrong when everything inside me screamed otherwise. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should confront Clara right away or give her space to explain herself. But what could she possibly say that would make any of this better? The truth had already been laid out in front of us both. There was no magic word that could undo the betrayal. But I couldn't move forward without some kind of decision. I needed to know what I was going to do next. Was I going to stay in this marriage? Was I really going to forgive her? Or was this the end? The house felt cold. I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had snapped and couldn't be put back together. Each time I passed Clara, I saw a version of her that wasn't the person I thought I knew. She was still the woman I had married, but now she was different. I was different. I spent hours in my office looking through the investigators' findings again, the images of Clara with Ethan burning into my brain. The more I saw, the clearer it became Clara had made a choice. And it wasn't me. But I didn't have all the answers yet. Not fully. I wasn't going to make any rash decisions until I had some time to really think about it. But at the same time, I couldn't keep living in this kind of suspended state of uncertainty. One evening after Clara had gone to bed early, I sat in the living room scrolling through the file on my phone. I felt exhausted physically and emotionally. I knew that sooner or later I would have to confront her again. This time, I needed to approach it with clarity without the raw anger that had burned through me the first time. I kept glancing at the clock. It was getting late. Clara had been distant, avoiding me in the few moments when we weren't, pretending everything was okay. I was trying to do the same. I didn't want to talk, didn't want to hash this out anymore. But I knew it was inevitable. I wasn't sure what to expect when we finally did speak again. Would Clara apologize more? Would she try to convince me that it was a mistake, that she loved me and it was all just a slip-up? Or would she just break down and beg me to stay? I couldn't do this anymore. I needed her to tell me the truth. I needed to hear it from her. No more deflections, no more vague excuses. I wanted to know what the hell had happened to the woman I married. My phone buzzed in my hand, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was a message from Jack, the investigator. Got more information for you. Thought you'd want to see it before you make any decisions. Call me when you're ready. I stared at the message for a few moments, letting it sink in. More information? What else could there possibly be? I picked up the phone and dialed his number, waiting for him to pick up. When he did, his voice was calm, but there was a slight edge to it, like he knew something I didn't. Hey, John, Jack said. I've got something for you. You asked me to dig deeper, so I did. I felt my pulse quicken. What is it? There's something I think you need to know. I found out who Ethan really is. He's not just some guy she's been seeing. There's a lot more to it. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? I did a little digging on his background, Jack said. Turns out Ethan has a history with Clara. They go way back. He's been in her life longer than you know. He's got a past, one that's not exactly clean. My heart dropped. What are you talking about? Jack paused. I don't have all the details yet, but I found out that Ethan's been using Clara for more than just a fling. He's got a history of taking advantage of people, and I think he's been doing it with Clara for a while. My stomach twisted. This was getting worse by the second. I didn't want to hear any more, but I knew I had to. Are you saying she's been manipulated? I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. I'm not saying anything for sure yet, Jack replied. But the more I look into it, the more it seems like Clara's gotten tangled up in something bigger. Maybe it started out as an affair, but I think it's deeper than that. I sat there, stunned into silence. What was I supposed to do with this new information? Was Clara really just a victim in all of this? Or was she still hiding something from me? I'll keep digging, but you should be prepared for what might come next, Jack added. I'll call you as soon as I have more. I hung up, the weight of what I had just learned pressing down on me. Was Clara truly a victim, or was she playing me just like she had played Ethan? I didn't know what to think anymore. But one thing was clear, I had to confront her again. There was more to the story, and I needed to know the truth. There could be no more pretending. No more silence. Tomorrow. I would face her tomorrow. I would demand the truth. And then I would decide what came next. The next day, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I spent the entire morning pacing around the house, staring at the walls, trying to summon the courage to sit Clara down. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't know how. How could I look her in the eyes and confront her with everything I knew, everything I had uncovered? By the time the evening came, I was running on fumes. The truth hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I couldn't keep pretending that nothing had changed. My head spun with the questions, the pain, the anger I hadn't even fully processed yet. Clara had been in and out of the house all day, getting ready for something with work. She had been quieter than usual, avoiding eye contact, staying busy. I couldn't tell if she knew the moment was coming or if she was just too distracted by her own guilt to face me. When she walked in around 6 p.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table. She froze when she saw me, a flicker of panic in her eyes. But she covered it quickly, plastering on a smile. Hey, she said, her voice a little too high, too cheerful. I didn't expect you to be home yet. Everything okay? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I simply watched her, my gaze cold and unwavering. The weight of everything I'd learned was still heavy in my chest, and it was becoming unbearable. Sit down, I said quietly, my voice surprisingly steady. We need to talk. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded and walked over to the table. The smile faded from her face as she took the chair across from me, her hands resting nervously in her lap. I could feel the tension in the room. Clara looked like she was about to say something, but I held up my hand to stop her. I wasn't giving her the chance to control the conversation. I know about Ethan, I said, my voice calm but firm. I watched as her face drained of color, her lips parting like she was going to speak but couldn't find the words. Clara's breath caught in her throat. John, I raised my hand again, cutting her off. I know everything. The messages. The photos. The hotel. I know what you've been hiding from me. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was staring at me now, her face pale and her eyes wide, her entire body tense. She looked like she had been caught in a lie that had spiraled out of control. I've been looking into it, Clara, I continued. I even had someone investigate. I know who Ethan is. I know what's been going on between the two of you. And I know you've been lying to me. Her lips trembled as she slowly nodded. I'm so sorry, she whispered, the words coming out choked, as if she were trying to fight back tears. I didn't want you to find out like this. I didn't want to hurt you. I stared at her for a long moment, feeling a mixture of disbelief and anger. Then why didn't you tell me the truth? Why didn't you come to me when things started to go wrong? She swallowed hard, looking down at her hands. I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know how to tell you what I'd done, what I'd let happen. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. You didn't think I had the right to know? I said, my voice getting sharper now. You didn't think I deserved the truth? Clara's eyes welled up with tears. I never wanted it to go this far. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I swear it was a mistake. A mistake. I repeated, shaking my head slowly. You've been seeing him for months, Clara. You've been texting him, meeting him in secret. And you're telling me it was just a mistake? That it didn't mean anything? She trembled slightly as she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I didn't plan for any of this. It just happened. I felt lonely. I felt like I wasn't enough for you anymore. I never wanted to hurt you, John. Lonely? I echoed, the word making my stomach twist. You felt lonely? Clara, you didn't come to me. You didn't talk to me. You didn't even try to work through whatever it was you were feeling. You just betrayed me. Her breath hitched as she reached out toward me, her hands trembling. I know I've hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I never wanted any of this to happen. I swear. I pulled back, not allowing her to touch me. I couldn't let her in. Not like this. What were you thinking, Clara? You didn't think I'd notice? You didn't think I'd find out? What did you want from me? Why didn't you just end things if you weren't happy with me? She took a shaky breath. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to throw everything away. But at the same time, I was scared. I was afraid you wouldn't understand, that you'd leave me. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my emotions in check. So you thought it was better to hide it? To lie to me? To throw away the trust we've built for years? Clara looked like she was about to speak again, but she stopped herself, her mouth trembling. She couldn't seem to find the words. I don't know what I was thinking, she whispered finally. I don't know how to make it right. But I love you, John. I do. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry. I stared at her for a long moment, my heart pounding in my chest, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I didn't want to hear her apologies. I didn't want her words anymore. I needed something more than apologies. I needed her to show me she could be the woman I once trusted. But I didn't think that woman was still here. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said quietly, my voice cracking under the pressure. I don't know if I can trust you again. Clara's face fell, her eyes filled with tears that she couldn't hold back anymore. Please, don't say that. I'll do anything. I'll work for it. I'll fix it, I swear. Just don't leave me. I stood up, the weight of her words sinking in. I don't know what to do anymore, Clara. I don't even know who you are anymore. I didn't wait for her to respond. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, my mind a mess, my heart broken, and the truth hanging over me like a dark cloud I couldn't escape. The days after our confrontation felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Clara's attempts to reach out, to apologize, to explain herself were endless. Texts, emails, even handwritten notes left on the kitchen counter. Each one more desperate than the last. I ignored them all, unable to bring myself to respond. It wasn't just the affair. It wasn't just the lies. It was everything. The trust had been shattered, and no amount of apologies, no matter how sincere they seemed, could glue it back together. I moved into a hotel, needing space to think. I couldn't stay in the house anymore. Every corner felt like a reminder of the woman I thought I knew, of the life I thought I had. The hotel room was small and impersonal, but it was a safe haven, somewhere I could gather my thoughts without Clara's presence looming over me. It was cold, sterile, but at least it was quiet. I tried to focus on work, but even that was hard. The cases I had once thrown myself into with passion felt meaningless now. All I could think about was Clara. What had gone wrong? Had I missed the signs? Had I been so blind to her unhappiness that I couldn't see what was happening right in front of me? I couldn't stop wondering if this was my fault somehow. Was I too distant? Too wrapped up in my own life? But no, that wasn't it. This wasn't my doing. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. This was Clara's decision. But it still hurt. A few days after I moved out, I received a call from my attorney. The last thing I wanted was to talk about legal matters right now, but I couldn't avoid it. Divorce was the next step, and I needed to understand the process. We talked briefly about the logistics, about dividing up assets, and how Clara had already begun the process of finding an attorney on her end. I wasn't surprised. We both knew this was inevitable. When I hung up, the weight of it all hit me again. The divorce wasn't just a formality. It was the end of everything I thought I knew about myself, about Clara, about us. But I was moving forward. Even though it didn't feel like I was healing, even though I felt numb most of the time, I knew I couldn't stay in limbo forever. A couple of days later, Clara showed up at the hotel. I wasn't expecting her. Hell, I didn't even know how she knew where I was staying. But there she was, standing in the lobby, eyes wide, her face pale. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I couldn't tell if I was relieved to see her or angry that she had the nerve to show up after everything. Maybe both. But I couldn't just turn my back on her. Not yet. She stepped toward me slowly, her voice shaky. "John, please. Can we talk?" I hesitated, feeling the anger I'd been holding back bubbling to the surface. "I don't think there's much to say, Clara. We've said everything already." I can't keep living like this, John," she said, her voice breaking. "I know I've ruined everything. I know I've hurt you. But I can't lose you. I can't. Please, just let me explain. Let me try to fix this." Her words hit me like a hammer, and for a moment, I felt that familiar pull, the part of me that still cared for her, that still wanted to believe in the person I had married. But then I remembered everything, the betrayal, the lies, the affair, and that pull quickly faded. "I don't think you can fix this," I said quietly. "I don't know how to trust you again, Clara. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way." She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "Please, John. I made a mistake. A huge one. But I love you. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose us." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to so badly. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I could ever go back to the way things were. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You don't get it, Clara. You don't just get to apologize and expect everything to go back to normal. I can't just pretend like none of this happened." She nodded slowly, tears spilling from her eyes. I know it's not that easy. But I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll do anything, John. Please." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. Everything felt like a mess. My heart was torn in 1,000 directions, and I couldn't see a way forward. "I need space, Clara," I said finally, my voice steady but firm. "I need time. I can't make any decisions right now. I don't know what I want. But I can't keep going like this with everything hanging in the air." She looked at me for a long moment, her face a mixture of desperation and defeat. "I understand," she whispered. "But I'm not giving up on us. I'll wait for you, John. Please, just don't give up on me." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Instead, I just turned and walked back toward the elevator, leaving her standing there, still holding on to the hope that I might come back to her. But as I stepped into the elevator, I realized something. I didn't know if I could ever come back to her. The woman I had known, the woman I had loved, wasn't the same person standing before me now. And maybe, just maybe, I had to let her go. It had been weeks since Clara and I had last spoken, and the weight of that silence hung over me like a dark cloud. The divorce proceedings were moving forward, but the real battle was inside me. I was still processing everything that had happened, everything I had learned, and everything I had lost. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore, but one thing had become clear: I couldn't keep living in the past. The hotel room had started to feel like a prison. I was surrounded by reminders of my failure, of the life I thought I had. The only thing keeping me tethered to this place was the work I had thrown myself into, trying to avoid dealing with the reality of my life. But even work couldn't drown out the thoughts, the regrets, the anger. I spent a lot of time at the bar, the place that had once been a refuge for me. It had always been my escape, my sanctuary. But now every time I stepped inside, I saw ghosts of the life I used to have. Clara laughing with her friends at the corner booth, the way she would smile when I came home from a long day at work. I hated how much I missed her, but I couldn't afford to let myself slip back into old patterns. I was still trying to figure out who I was without her, without the life we had built together. I had spent so much of my time trying to make her happy, trying to build the perfect life, that I had forgotten to build a life for myself. A couple of months passed and the emotional fog started to lift. I couldn't say I was healing, not yet. But I was getting there. Slowly, I began reclaiming pieces of my life that I had neglected. I started running again, something I hadn't done in years. The rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement was meditative, clearing my head and giving me the space to think. I started picking up old hobbies, things I had loved before Clara and I had gotten caught up in our whirlwind life. I picked up my guitar again, something I hadn't touched in forever. And for the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of control. It wasn't easy. There were days when the weight of everything came crashing back down. I'd catch myself thinking about Clara, about how we had gotten here, about all the good times we'd had. But each time I would pull myself back, reminding myself that I was moving forward. I was rebuilding. One Saturday afternoon, a couple of months after the confrontation with Clara, I found myself in a local coffee shop. It was a place I had gone to many times before, but this time it felt different. I wasn't thinking about Clara or the mess I had left behind. I was simply enjoying the moment. That's when I saw her. Rachel. She was sitting at the table near the window, a book in one hand, a coffee cup in the other. She looked up just as I walked past and our eyes met. She smiled, a warm, genuine smile that didn't carry any baggage, didn't carry any past hurts. I stopped in my tracks. It had been months since I'd even thought about meeting someone new, but something in her smile, in the way she looked at me, made me pause. I hadn't realized how badly I'd missed feeling connected to someone. She raised an eyebrow as if to say, "What are you standing there for?" I chuckled a little awkwardly, but it felt good. I hadn't laughed like that in so long. "Hey," I said, stepping over to her table. "I didn't expect to run into you here." Rachel's smile widened. "I come here often. It's kind of my escape." "Mine too," I said, sitting down across from her. I wasn't sure what made me take the seat, but I didn't care. Felt easy, comfortable. I hadn't felt comfortable in a long time. She set her book down and leaned back in her chair. "So, how's life treating you these days?" I hesitated for a second, unsure how much to share. I wasn't ready to get into the details of my messy, heartbreaking divorce. But Rachel's presence made me feel like it didn't have to be complicated. It didn't have to be heavy. "It's getting better," I said after a beat. "I've been figuring things out. Rebuilding, I guess." She nodded. "I get that. I think we all have to rebuild at some point." I smiled, feeling a shift in the air between us. It wasn't like the weight I had carried around with Clara. The heavy expectations, the misunderstandings. Rachel felt like a breath of fresh air. "I'm sorry about everything that's been going on," Rachel said, her voice softening. "But I'm really glad to see you're getting through it." "Yeah," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I didn't think I would. But I am. I'm finding a new rhythm." "Good," she said, smiling warmly. "I think we all deserve a little peace." Her words resonated with me more than I expected. Peace. That was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I had been searching for since everything with Clara had fallen apart. It wasn't about finding someone else to fix me. It was about finding my own peace, my own space to breathe and heal. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. About books we'd read, movies we loved, places we wanted to visit. It was simple and easy, and for the first time in a long time I felt light. I felt like I was seeing the world again, without the weight of the past hanging over me. By the time I left the coffee shop, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Not for a future with Rachel, not yet at least. But hope for a future where I was in control of my own life, where I didn't have to carry the weight of someone else's choices on my shoulders. I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. I was still me, still whole, still capable of love, just in a different way. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to find that again. As I walked home, the sun setting behind me, I felt lighter, and for the first time in months, I smiled, knowing I was finally on my way to a new beginning. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost serene. I had started to rebuild my life in ways I hadn't even realized I needed. My days were no longer marked by the dread of facing Clara's lies, the weight of unanswered questions, or the remnants of a broken trust. I spent my time doing things I had put off for far too long, reconnecting with friends, rediscovering hobbies I had let go, and, surprisingly, finding comfort in my own company. It wasn't easy, but it felt necessary. I still had moments when Clara's face would flash in my mind. Her smile, the way she laughed, the life we built. I still missed parts of her. But each day, the pain dulled just a little more. It wasn't about forgetting her. It was about realizing that I didn't need her to define my happiness anymore. The only person who could do that was me. One afternoon, I found myself sitting at a park bench, looking out at the trees swaying in the breeze. I hadn't planned on coming here, but something about the open air, the sound of children playing in the distance, and the warmth of the sun made me stop and reflect. I had come so far, and I was finally starting to understand that the pain of the past didn't have to weigh me down forever. I could move forward. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the messages that had accumulated in the past week. I had been avoiding them, but today felt like the day to deal with them, mostly from Clara, mostly apologies. Some from my parents, expressing regret and asking if I was okay. A few from friends checking in, offering support. But there was one that caught my eye. It was a message from Rachel, the woman I had met at the coffee shop. "I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about you. If you want to meet up sometime, I'd love to hear how you're doing. No pressure, just a coffee." A smile tugged at my lips. It was light, casual, no expectations, just an invitation to continue something that felt good, that felt easy. I hadn't expected to hear from her again so soon, but I welcomed it. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was ready to explore it. I typed a quick reply. "I'd love that. Let me know when you're free." As I pressed send, I realized how far I had come. Months ago, I would have been too afraid to let anyone in again. I would have buried myself in the past, in the hurt, in the anger. But now, I was ready, not just for Rachel but for myself. I didn't need Clara's approval. I didn't need her to tell me it was okay to move on. I had already forgiven myself for what had happened. I was learning how to live for me, to let go. Later that evening, as I sat down to a simple dinner alone, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in months. There were no frantic thoughts swirling in my head. No questions about Clara, no wondering what I had done wrong. Just the quiet hum of my thoughts as I took in the moment. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Clara. My stomach tightened, but I didn't flinch. I didn't feel that same knot in my chest anymore. "John, I just wanted to check in. I know things have been difficult. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want you to know that I'm truly sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. If you're ever ready to talk, I'm here. I miss you." I stared at the message for a long time. I could feel the weight of it, the hope, the regret. But I didn't need her apology anymore. I didn't need to hear her say she was sorry for me to feel better. I had already let go of the past. With a deep breath, I typed a response, keeping it simple, keeping it respectful. "Thank you for reaching out. I'm doing okay. I think it's time for both of us to move on." I hit send, and then I did something I hadn't done before. I deleted her contact information. It wasn't out of anger. It wasn't out of spite. It was just necessary. I had to let go of the last piece of her, the last tie that bound me to the pain of our past. I didn't need it anymore. I was moving forward. The rest of the evening passed quietly. And as I got ready for bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long, a sense of calm, a sense of hope. I had closed the chapter of my life, but I wasn't looking back anymore. The future was wide open, and for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what came next. The future didn't belong to Clara or to the mistakes I had made. It belonged to me, and I was ready for whatever came my way. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, finally at peace with the man I was becoming. The man who was finally letting go.